it's going to be really bad for the people who are going to be going from $300, $400 payments to over $1,000. For people who have not budgeted that don't have an extra $400, $500 a month, some of them might go without care. Some of them might go without any reserve savings as they try to find some way to make ends meet, especially if their health insurance isn't just for them, but it's for their loved ones, and they don't really think there's an option to really skip out on it. And it's not just going to affect those who are directly affected by the subsidies. That means you or somebody who's actually going and getting the subsidies to help pay for your affordable care market healthcare. No, I'm talking about people who are not even on the program who could also see their premiums go up just because of the outgrow effects of how this will affect the healthcare market in the United States. That doesn't mean it's going to affect everyone in the United States. We have a majority of Americans, but we're talking about tens of millions of Americans, between something like 20 and 30 million Americans being affected by this, both directly or indirectly, but all in ways that mean more money out of your pocket, higher premiums, a bigger bill on healthcare at the end of the day in the country that already spends the most of any other developed country on healthcare to get some of the poorest results. Even though we constantly hear about the innovations of American healthcare companies, the innovation of healthcare research, and all of these patents that are originating out of the United States, which is something you can use to show the progress in the medical field, the progress against the scourge of pestilence, only to not be able to afford it anyway. This is something that's going to be terrible for those people affected. That's the first thing. Terrible for those who are going to have to pay more. Terrible for those who are not going to be able to make child care payments or not going to be able to, do those before and after care programs, who might have to check their kid out of it, some extracurricular activities because they can't afford the uniforms, they can't afford this, they can't afford that. This is, of course, negative for them. But it's also going to be devastating for those who deny care until the last possible moment, where people who would have otherwise gone and gotten medical assistance are now going to wait because they don't want to go get a checkup and have to pay $100 or $200 out of pocket just to go to a patient first, just to have somebody squeeze around their stomach a little and say, you're fine, don't worry about it. To have their pain or their discomfort dismissed and their sickness disregarded. Illness just completely hand waved off. And so some people will decide, in order to keep more money in their family's pocket, they're just not going to go to the doctors. Now, this doesn't get rid of the medical issue. In some cases, some people who thought they might have an issue, they wait, and for them, they might get lucky. And it turns out it wasn't, a tumor. Turns out it wasn't actually cancer. Turns out it wasn't these things. It actually was that you're just a little gassy. It actually was you had to change your sleep schedule. But for those, in many cases, that actually should have, they're going to be left with two scenarios. Either A, the situation is going to continue to deteriorate until they can no longer ignore it and have to get medical help, which will mean more pain for them through that process, but also more expense as the problem worsens. Maybe the illness spreads to other parts of your body, and now you're going to need more treatment, more care that's going to keep you out of commission for a longer period of time, not only hurting your family, but hurting the economy around you as a whole. That's one outcome. The other outcome is you die. That's the other outcome, is that you don't get that help, or you do, and you took too long, and now it's too late. And I know people who have taken too long, and now it is too late. And I don't think I'm the only person with that type of, those types of stories. So what does this mean electorally? Which should be, of course, the last concern. But what does this mean electorally? Well, Republicans know that they're kind of screwed. See, the way that Americans are blaming our government right now is pretty simple, and it's going to be a hard logic to argue against it. And you can try to argue against this logic. You can try to create a Sisyphus boulder to push up the hill to say, we're in charge, but it's not our fault. We have the majority, but it's actually Democrat. You can attempt that. But currently, the order of blame currently goes from Donald Trump, sitting in the high 30s when you poll Americans for who's at fault for this, like 37, 34%. Then you go to the Republican Party in second place, where you're going to be in the high 20s or 29%, something along those lines. And then third, you get to the Democrats, currently sitting at 19% blame, meaning 1 out of every 5, well, technically less, but roughly 1 out of every 5 Americans saying it's their fault. And you can probably imagine the percentage of Trump voters and Republicans that make up that coalition. But when you talk about independents, Democrats, or even moderate Republicans, the blame has continuously shifted further and further and further towards both A, the party that is in power, but also B, the party that has continuously, as these negotiations have come up, either said, we don't have to worry about this right now. We still have months to negotiate. Terrible, terrible strategic statement from Mike Johnson. Probably one of the dumbest things that Mike Johnson ever said politically was during the threat to shut down the government, which then became the shutdown government. Mike Johnson saying, we still have months before the healthcare subsidies expire, before healthcare prices go up. So we don't need to negotiate this now. Let's reopen the government, continue everything as it were, and then we'll deal with it when the issue comes around. Well, now the issue has come around, Congress is shut down, and now there is no chance that they're going to be able to extend the subsidies before they expire and prices go up. So the prices are going to go up. And it's a question of whether or not they can play catch up in the first month of January to try to find some way to pull it back in. But considering their record so far, and considering the fact that there's a lot of Republicans that still do not want to compromise on the matter, they fought to keep it gutted in the big, beautiful bill, and they don't want to have to go back on that work now, even if it's politically not advantageous. But tell that to the Republicans living in purple districts in places like New York, and they're going to pull out their hair because they understand that their majority is dependent upon independents not turning against them. And this is one of the biggest issue that is making independents turn against the Republican Party and see the Republican Party as not the party to not only manage healthcare issues, but to manage the economy, period. That affordability is not improving. The cost of goods at the grocery store is not sufficiently improving. That the president obviously overpromised, and he is now under-delivering. It's one thing is if he, under-promised and over-delivered or delivered, but over-promising and under-delivering by not only the extent of a little bit, but, hey, we're going to end the war in 24 hours and it's been a year. Hey, we're going to reduce healthcare prices on day one, and now healthcare prices are about to go up, right? These are not even promises that are being under-delivered. These are promises where there is no delivery at all. They have charged you $25 for your book and nothing's been delivered. They've charged you for the extension cable, they charge you for this, they charge you for that, and you're still waiting in the mail, wondering if something got lost by UPS. But it's not that something got lost by UPS. They never put a sticker, they never put a postage stamp on a package and sent it out in the first place. And so this is going to be what loses the Republicans their House majority in 2026. If there is not some sort of unforeseen complication, i.e. somebody tries to interfere with the voting process, tries to interfere with people getting to the polls, tries to completely box people out from participating in the process, purge the voting rolls, stuff like that. As long as there isn't something that should be out of the ordinary going into 2026, current trends, economic, polling trends, and the lack of action on healthcare all point towards a blue wave in 2026. The likelihood of it being successful enough to get the Democrats back to House and Senate, I still think is unlikely. But the Republican control of the House, that is not only threatened, it is fully in view, in range. They are marked in on it. They got the coordinates routed. They're just waiting for the election to happen. Democrats can't rest on the laurels. They can't just assume that the election's going to go well and going to go good for them. They still need to deliver a positive agenda. They still need to speak towards affordability. And the one thing that can really screw the Democrats here is the one party that polls less popularly than Republicans right now is the Democratic Party. So maybe in any other circumstance, I would have an idea to say, okay, maybe you could rest on your laurels. But they're so unpopular that their toxicity and how the American voter views them is the one possible saving grace for the Republicans. The fact that the Republicans are running against Democrats is maybe the only thing that could save them in 2026. And Democrats need to fix that problem. The problem of their brand being toxic. People shouldn't have to plug their nose to vote for you, because if they do, some people will just avoid the stink entirely and stay home. Part of the reason we lost in 2024 to begin with.